Hello class, this is Professor Carlos Leavin, and the purpose of this video tutorial is to make sure that Photoshop is set up properly for our web design workflow. Now I understand that this setups can be different from you simply because everyone has their own working preferences. However, for me personally, there are some things that you'll get to see what they are. Some things that I certainly need a quick access to during my web design process that Photoshop simply does not provide by default. But we'll get to see what those things are now. One of the most important things that I want you to get out of this video is to understand that you can set up your workflow, your workspace, any which way you like. For instance, you can set it up for web design, as we're going to do in a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes. You can also set it up for, let's say, creating flyers or letterheads, etc., etc. But in this case, we're going to be working on web design as it relates to the course. Now, a detailed explanation is actually going to be posted in Blackboard explaining the reasons why we're going to be working or setting up our workspace the way we will in this area. But I'm just going to cover it in sort of an overview kind of way. By you just clicking and following along as we move through the video, you'll be able to you'll be able to set it up learn how to set it up, and then maybe in the future, if you feel more comfortable, or as you get more comfortable working with Photoshop CSX, you probably most likely get to set it up the way you like, okay, based upon your preferences. To begin, we're going to go ahead and click on File, New, and wait until that opens up. That we have on the screen, we have a dialog box with several fields that need to be filled out. Now in this case, I'm going to start with name. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and call it web design. Okay? And after that, I'm going to move on to the next field over, which is called preset, this little guy right here. Click the drop down menu and select web. For web, I'm actually telling CSS, Photoshop CSS, that this is going to be a setting. This is going to be the settings for the document size, the page, the parameters, the workspace, and I'm going to make it. Give it some specification. I'm sorry, give it some specification as to how I really like it to set up. The next thing I'm going to be working on is on the size, and the size right here is going to be the total document. 800 by 600 is what shows right now, but we're going to change that to 1366 by 1029, and it goes like this. Go ahead and click on the field next to width and type in 1366 pixel. Move over, clicking on the tab key until you reach the height. For height, I said we're going to have a 1029, which is 1029 pixels. And resolutions. For resolutions, the standard resolutions for web design for websites out there, it's still 72. Now, this may change for images. You can change it in many different ways for images, but this is something we're going to be covering later on down the road. Okay. The next field over is the color mode. We're going to leave it as RGB, red, green, and blue color. 8-bit, and the background content is going to be, I'm going to click in the background color, which is by selecting this option, I'm actually given this color, the burgundy or kind of maroon, kind of as the background, and we're going to change that. We're going to change that later on. You'll be able to, all these changes you can change as you go along, but what we're doing is, again, setting it up so that to save us time, and know that these are the specifications we're always going to be working with, alright? Now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. There you have, guys. Like I said, the background color is going to be reddish, maroon, kind of, but we're going to be able to change that by doing the following. Since the foreground color is selected right here, it's black, by clicking on the paint bucket tool, and clicking in the workspace, you'll have changed the color. Alright, now the next thing I would like to cover actually is working with the color swatches, and it goes a little bit like this. Selecting the icon from the panel. If you don't have it there, you can activate it. It means it's not activated and set up to be there for you every time you open Photoshop. And you can do that by clicking on Window right here and selecting Color. right? Scroll down or select color. Clicking OK will give you this option as I'm doing right now. Okay, swatches, we got the color and the swatches. We're going to be working with the swatches as I was saying. And we're going to change it into a little preference that I like to call, or it's called actually, the web spectrum. But before we do that, I'd like to explain a little bit what the differences are between the two. The differences between the two. If you hover over with the eyedropper, as you can see I'm doing, as you can see me doing in the video right now on the screen, and every time I hit a specific color, I'll get the name of it in a form of a hint. If I move over to another color, and we'll do the same. Right, 65% gray, CMYK magenta, etc., etc., so on and so forth. Right, but that is not as accurate and exact and easier to work with as it is with working with web spectrum. And what I mean by that is, let me just show you real quick before we get any further into this. Okay, so go ahead and click on the drop down menu right there, select web spectrum, and let's discuss this little three little options that Photoshop gives us. In this little dialog box, what we have is OK, cancel, and pen. The OK, if you hit OK, this is what you're actually doing. If you can read, it says replace current color swatches with swatches from web spectrum. And you may want to do that. Sometimes I do that. I've done it in the past. And these changes you can change later on to something else. But that's what OK button will mean in this case. If you click cancel, then everything stays the same. But if you hit a pen, if you go ahead and hit a pen, what you're actually be doing is adding the web spectrum swatches, adding it to the already or regular color swatches. And it goes like this. I'm going to go ahead and hit a pen and check over here. Again, I'm gonna hover over this specific color, which is like yellow green, and to get that information, right? But if I scroll down to the web spectrum swatches and hover over any color, instead of getting the name of the color, what I'm getting actually is the hex color code. Again, I'm going to hover over to another color, and you can see we have the pound FF3333. This is specifically and very, very useful, especially if we're going to be working with CSS, which we will later down the road. We're going to be working with CSS, and using the hex color code is a lot more strict, a lot more accurate, and easier to work with, as I was saying earlier. So go ahead and leave it at that. And collapse this window. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about would be the characters, styles, and panels, and so on and so forth. They are these little guys right here, these little icons for characters, paragraph styles, and character style. They're already set up in there because I did it before, and I forgot to change it for this lecture, but in order to activate those, it's the same way as if you were activating the color swatch. Just select window from the top menu and select characters. By doing that, you'll see that both the paragraph and the characters window open, or the panels open, collapsing that. Select windows again. I'm going to go ahead and select this time character styles, which will give me the paragraphs, both the paragraph styles as well as the character style. This is very useful when working with a lot of text, which I often do with some of my clients. I worked a lot of text and websites, and what that's actually going to be doing is helping me add in the effects, some of the special effects from InDesign into Photoshop on a kind of an automated way, right? Last but not least is the jump menu, and it's right at the top right on the screen. You see that 3D text right there. I'm going to go ahead and click it, and it gives it all these options, which is and the purpose is to jump from setting to setting. In this case, we have the 3D, the motion painting, photograph, and typography. Photography and typography, right? We don't have a web design, so in this case, we're going to have to create it, and this is done like this: clicking on New Workspace and working with this little dialog box. This dialog box tells us that whatever settings we have right here, file, the working space, the panels, the ones we work with and the ones we're going to erase or deactivate. The ones we'll leave activated here on this side are the ones that are going to be related to the web design option that we're going to create here, web design. Right? I'm going to go ahead and leave these unchecked because I'm not going to assign any new shortcuts to any keys here. Whatever we have right now, this is pretty simple and very easy to work with, and in my experiences, I haven't had any reasons to actually make any changes on this aspect, on this portion of the web design process. So click Save, and as you can see, we have, instead of 3D, it changed from 3D to web design. Click on that to see that it's not there. It's up here. So if I change it back to 3D, and let's say I have different, as I'm going to do here real quick, I'm going to go ahead and undock, click Close, undock once again, and click Close. I'm going to go ahead and undock, close, and click Close, and select Web Design. You'll see that everything opens up, appears again. But if I go back to 3D, it goes up. Alright? So that's the main purpose of setting up your working space, to save you time. If I wanted to work on 3D graphics, then I'll select 3D graphics. But since we're going to be working with web designs, I'm going to go ahead and select web design, and there you have it. See, the panels are there once again, set up and readily available for use. Alright? This marks the end of this video tutorial, and I guess I'll see you on our next video. Alright? Thank you so much, and have a good one.